Oh,
Hello, hello, hello.
hello. Testing.
Testing,
Testing for gratitude. One, two,
testing,
three.
testing. Ah,
I like that you picked this subject.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Whenever I look at the things, I always have a fun time because I think where are the areas in my life where I think they had a deep impact, and this is gratitude. So I thought it would be cool to spend an hour on it. So we're going to do that today on
A
A
wonderful
Wonderful
chaos.
Chaos. Dum dee dee dee. So we discussed the picture in the background,
Oh, God.
and we kind of started with this. Like we tried to always find images that portray the sensibility of the show, and this one, it was a hard one because this one kind of, for those that are listening, it looks almost like you might see like Jesus reaching his arms out, and then the light of God touching him, and somehow I do feel like that is a deep sense of what it is, especially gratitude.
It's just generic.
But it's generic, and I believe that everyone gets so used to such imagery that you kind of get you get allergic to it a bit.
Yeah.
So we've chosen it because we couldn't find a better image.
And also, we didn't really have much time to pick a better image.
No, we didn't.
I'm gonna take the cap off. I feel that we're at a baseball game.
Nice. A baseball game, and it's the baseball games in Brazil, and that's the statue that's over on top of us. When I thought of the topic and why gratitude, of course, we have another person in our lives who we have a lot of contact or have had contact with, Will Pye, and he had a brain tumor, right? And he his whole message was be grateful for everything, including a brain tumor. And for those that haven't seen or read his book, It's Blessed with a Brain Tumor, I'm sure we'll have him on at some point as well. But why gratitude hit me really strong, and it has for a long time, is that when I was doing the tour, I'd have different types of groups. There's the book tour for those obviously who don't know. I did this book tour through the US for 3 months, but on the tour, there were different kinds of groups, and some groups had, say, younger audiences. And the younger audiences would ask different types of questions because they were still kind of seeking, desiring information. And one of the groups, I think it might have even been in San Francisco, one of the people says, "What's the key to happiness?" And I looked at them and I smiled and I said, I think just laughingly without giving it much thought, I said, you know what, when you figure that out, let me know. Right. I think that's where I started. But then it was like I kind of shut my eyes and I had this jerk in my stomach, was like, and I just sort of like blurted it out without any thought. I hadn't given a lot of thought beforehand. I just said gratitude. There's a big session. I think there was maybe 50, 60 people there. So it wasn't like I was, there was no preset, let me explain or talk about it. It was like a very authentic, momentary. And now I have this word gratitude thrown out of my mouth where I haven't really given it any thought before I said it. But it was clear to me that really shifted how I experience the world, is if I view it with or without gratitude. And I see it every day of my life. And I also see it very much tied to so many parts of paradoxes, in the sense of when I talk about paradoxes, I see that so often in my life is that there's these qualities to everything we experience, which is avoiding a negative and seeking a positive. And if we avoid a negative, I don't want to feel uncomfortable. So I might say mantras like, I'm okay and it's good and I'll be safe. And if I want to celebrate the positive, I might say, wow, I'm so happy to be alive. I just feel joy of being here at this moment. I feel with Ronnie, I feel constant gratitude over and over again that I'm together with someone that I love, respect, and admire. So in that way, there's this deep, deep gratitude that goes beyond, for instance, any argument there might be. And I see when people lose that gratitude, then all of a sudden they fall back into that reactive mind, which has resentment and frustration and anger and everything that builds up over time. So that was why I chose gratitude. Yeah.
Is it a daily practice for you? Like, is it something that you actively do, or is it something that you're just living with? Like,
not a practice.
It's like just living next to you. It sounds like.
Yeah. In fact, I almost have to. I'm of two minds always when it comes to practices. I love practices. I don't like dependency on practices.
Yeah.
Like a practice for me is a great tool to allow one to get in contact with something, and through repetition, so have it more ingrained in their lives. What I've often seen in practices is people do it as almost a dependency, like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore, so now I don't have gratitude like I used to. So I wake up and I think you'll see it on the show when I will introduce a guest who comes on. I'm always feeling a deep sense of gratitude.
Do you know, every time I look at our shows, the introductions that you do,
yeah,
it's like if everyone would sit down and watch Andy introducing every guest, like, oh, he made me feel so special, but now he's actually making everyone feel special.
Really?
Yeah, it's like you actually touch everyone's unique flavor, but it's with the same tonality, but you touch everyone's individuality.
Yeah, and that's totally authentic. Like, I mean, no, I know you know, but I'm laughingly saying it's like I see them and I appreciate them, and it's almost like it's, you know, it might sound horrible. Ronnie would make fun of me for saying this, by the way, but I often say people are a reflection of me. So whatever I appreciate in them, I'm also appreciating in myself.
Isn't that a general thing?
It is, but Ronnie would say, you know, like, why does it always have to be about you? I always tease her and say I want her on the show, and then we discuss the topic, and then I say, how is it living with Andy? Or I'll make up anything so that it's about not. I
don't think you should be part of that. Just me and Ronnie.
Exactly. But that's what I see where people, they have the choice of taking one or two roads. You see what someone embodies and what they call it, their manifestation, how it is, and you celebrate that, or you see what they don't have and you say, if they only just had that. And I'm always of the mind that those two things are almost complementary. Like the people you love most for being a little bit sloppy and incapable, you love them, of course, because of their inabilities as well. And then the sad thing is that we'll often go and try to heal them or fix them in some strange way. So I'm of this, gratitude for me is a state of just being observant of everything that exists in my life and this appreciation for that. And it gets hard, obviously, because things are bad. And sometimes people don't want to feel gratitude towards, you know, this woman who killed my mom. You know, how can I be grateful for that? And then you have these conflicting emotions come up, like, you can't be grateful for that. And you have to sit and take a deep breath, say, wow, you know, I don't necessarily need to be grateful for her death, but I'm grateful for what became of all of that. I'm grateful for the fact that I can hold space for others more so now because of that experience in my life. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot moving from me as you're speaking.
What do you feel?
Well, it's really easy to feel grateful when your life is together. Like you don't have to worry about finances. You don't have, you've got like everything is there for you. But in my own life, my practice is I actually do need to sit down in the morning and actually kind of force myself to write what I'm grateful for. Like literally get a pen, paper, and just write 2 A4, and not just doing it automatically. Like, what did I write yesterday? Like really tuning into what am I grateful for this
right now,
this moment.
Yeah.
Like just seeing where I'm at, how I'm feeling, the relationship I have with myself, with the world. And I would even say it's more challenging than doing 200 pull-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I have to drag my mind through the mud. that kind of feeling. But
And would you say that when you start that, would you say you can get into gratitude, or is you have to like write for a while till you actually get into the gratitude?
I have to write for a while, but it just the first sentence is already a victory for me.
Wow.
Just that first sentence, especially in the last 2 weeks when it was really tough for me. And it might even be a practice that I don't even want to do. Like, it's more easy to do when you're like, yay, life is great. But I feel the real art is finding the light when things are shitty.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, because I'm always, when that wording, especially, which is, I love to hear wording in my head and see what happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the light when it's shitty.
Finding the light in the darkness.
In the dark. Either way, it doesn't. It would be interesting, because in some ways, like, I'm often seeing my life as preparing to die.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting there with the feeling like, wow, this could be over, and am I grateful for this moment? Am I grateful for what's going on? It's almost like I've embraced the existential point of whatever that sense of not being here would be. And after that, it feels like all the other gratitude is much easier, even not having the money or being homeless. It's like that's the furthest most point of, wow, what if I'm grateful for that? Yeah. Did that go too far? Or what's I see you looking, I'm wondering what's going on in your head.
I was even thinking, why I said finding the light in the dark, but to also find why the dark is also something to be grateful for. Just to give that a
I'm weirdly thinking, what if this is kind of weirdly going into the non-dual dual space. There's the dual space, which is good and bad.
Yeah, got you.
And then there's this sort of idea. It's all a concept. It's a paradigm of living, often referred to as non-dualism, living in the oneness and all of that. There's verbiage for it. Everyone has their own experiences and they reference it a bit differently. And then I'm like, what if there was just experience? Because as soon as you say I need to make peace with the negative, it's already become something that you have to kind of take the idea it's a negative and you work from the paradigm that it's negative. I had a really nice talk today with a mutual friend of ours, Frank. And I won't give his last name. Who knows, he might be listening. And Frank is having some struggles in his family at the moment. And he said to me, Andy, I'm working through it. There's a lot of turmoil. There's diagnosed psychosis in the family. And he's, of course, seen some of that in himself, as we always do. And as we were going through it, he said, he was always trying, how do I manage it? How do I manage family? How do I manage, and I laughed and I was thinking, wow. So we worked together a lot of years and there's a lot of tools to make peace with negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, what does it look like if we move into the space where you really see there's just thoughts?
Without attaching.
Yeah. And then, of course, when the attachment to it being felt as negative comes in, you all of a sudden learn something new about yourself, which is very different than trying to work out a negative thought or manage it. It's just like, wow, look at that thought, emotion. Wow, that's strange how fast that happens. And I mean, we talk about in the show, and, Case, my mentor, would have spent all of his time listening and reading Krishnamurti, and I am that. Thich Nhat. And I got the luxury of being with him as he was living and trying to help and support others to see what life looked like when you're not caught in this idea of good and bad. So I got the benefit of that time with him for the 10 years or so. And then when teachers come out and then they do the non-dual thing and they'll stand and sit in front of a group and ask people to calm their thoughts. And then as thoughts arise and then feelings are attached to those thoughts, they'll start to dissect it in a way that help people connect back to the essence of the emotion behind it. And how this, I don't, it's funny because how I see it and I think, how does this all work back to gratitude? Because it does feel like it does. it's almost like the gratitude for me comes, there's a gratitude that all of that is in love. Yeah. It would be the difference between looking at what your father or your mother or your sister brothers did and projecting onto it and then being frustrated with it, or actually seeing a behavior outside of yourself that has nothing to do with you, having compassion for yourself, that you were stuck all those years thinking that you had to do something about it. So you're compassionate to that feeling, and then grateful that you can be grateful that that person now sees that it's okay. It's not their problem. Grateful to love them, you and them, and so on. Yeah. So happiness and gratitude. You've got so much stuff going on in your life. How is it to hear all this for you?
I recognize, especially there'll be moments where I've seen that the mind, I just get attacked by my mind.
Oh yeah.
And it feels like an avalanche of thoughts just hit, and the first step would be just becoming aware, oh, apparently I am having this havoc in my head and I can't solve it. And normally just breathing, like it feels always like I'm underwater and I go up for air.
Yeah.
So
do you see what I've noticed in my own life is that there's stretches of time when I'll get stuck underwater longer, and then just through kind of becoming more aware and conscious, it's like, oh, it might have taken a month. Now it only takes a week. Now it only takes 3 days. Now it only takes an hour. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that's where meditation comes in for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more I meditate, or the more I introduce it into my life as a practice,
Yeah.
whether with eyes open or closed, the more I claim space from my mind.
Yeah.
I've never really experienced no thoughts, only the awareness that, oh, there's thoughts. Like I've never really had a no mind moment as far as I remember.
It's interesting. Or maybe you had, you just don't, since you were no mind, you didn't think of it as being anything. Right?
Well, it's normally this, like I can see what's happening here. There's a lot of activity going on, these sensations, but not getting involved in them.
Yeah, I experience, in whatever my form of no mind would be, I feel like all the confusion, say in the frontal lobe of my head, is just there, and there's no anything trying to fix, solve, think about, or anything. It's just like there. And then since it's so alive and just not being worked with, it just sort of sits quietly, and then it just, yeah, it's almost like so loved, I'd say, that there's not a lot of thoughts coming up. I believe if it weren't loved, then it would be me trying to work out how do I quiet my mind, instead of just saying a lot of noise, a lot of confusion, and now I'm just here. People talk, I hear more noise, more confusion, and now I'm just here. Yeah. And that's why I think teachers like Krishnamurti and these sort of non-dualists, it's an incredible opportunity for people to sit, often in silence, and begin to reacquaint themselves with their own thoughts. Because in some ways, the pattern, if it goes unbroken, we don't even realize you can experience your mind in a wholly different way. So that's what these kind of experiences give you. And I'm embracing all of those in whatever shape and form. And people take their own journey to interrupt their own pattern thinking. Yeah. You said, we talked about the last 2 weeks, right? So if you were to go in to say, you would have to use gratitude as a practice the last 2 weeks. It would never be something you just spontaneously in the middle of a day say, wow, I'm grateful. Or would you say it is that also that way?
I held my breath. I don't really have an answer.
Okay.
But what came up for me
Uh-huh.
is, like today when I thought about gratitude and why, like, my mama was, until today, she like, I can project that she's quite a negative person in how she's processing things. Like, she'll always go to the empty part of the bottle instead of what's already there. And sometimes today I was like, wow, sometimes I think that I am up against that in my own self. So just seeing that part of my mother is in me. The only thing is I have tools to work with it.
Yeah. But you brought up your mom in relation to gratitude. So how were those two things connected?
Just, I guess I would say I need the practice. I need the practice because I am my mother.
Mm-hmm. And do you judge that?
No.
Okay.
No. Not where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Because I would almost expect more of the gratitude. I am my mother, and and the celebration of it. That tends to how I see. Like it's almost like an old friend, as it were. Yeah. I cried 3 days, three times today because of this knowing that this was the title of the show today. Just feeling, it's interesting because as soon as I feel gratitude, I can just go right to that space of where that feels true for me. And it doesn't even need to be associated with any thought. It's just gratitude. Yeah. In fact, when one associates it with a thought, it gets confused again because it's almost projected onto a thing. And where gratitude of just being in gratitude, it feels so embodied. And then I'm grateful for. It's sort of, yes, it's also that, but there's something even bigger than that, which is, wow, I'm just in presence of gratitude. Yeah. I think of Will Pye, of course, who I said at the start of the show, when he did Blessed with a Brain Tumor, his whole practice and his whole group was radical gratitude. Was it right? Radical gratitude. And I do see that as soon as one takes whatever they also, so not all that dissimilar from my practice, of course, takes the thing that they're fearful, anxious, feeling the most anger towards, and is able to give that gratitude.
Love.
Like life changes in an instant. We've talked about it a lot, of course, on the show. It changes in an instant. And also in my interactions with others, it's very infrequent that I don't leave an interaction and am not connected to the gratitude I have towards the individual. Which means that the interactions are often more meaningful.
No, that's pretty beautiful.
And I believe people, that they feel seen often in ways that they don't even know they don't feel seen. Yeah.
I like what you just said. I'm just sitting with that.
Yeah. What about it?
Oh, it's just I'm curious to play with it. Just another way to tune into gratitude while being with anyone, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I often find I'm often given emails from people said, Andy, can you help me rewrite this email? You've also done it once or twice in our lives together.
More than that.
And there's a pattern to how I write an email. I don't know if you've seen that. I assume you have. What is it?
I feel very grateful for the time that we shared, or along those lines.
Yeah, I'll always start, even if it's something, and it's not, some people want to call it a shit sandwich because they say, oh, you start with something nice and then you say the problem and then you start, and I don't see it that way. I see it honestly as I really do feel gratitude towards the quality or the thing that person, even if you're going to laugh, even if someone's trying to say, lower the prices of a service to myself. So if someone says, I don't want to pay him as much money, right? And so they ask for a discount. They might ask for 2 or 3 times for a discount. Then some people get defensive and angry, and they're like, hold on, don't you think I'm worth it?
I want you to take it to an example where you really felt like stabbed. Like, this is too light for me. Like, really, that you felt that the impact of being with that person or organization.
I can't, since I'm not usually putting myself in positions nowadays of that, I have to really, do you know any stories that would?
Argentinian guy.
Argentinian guy. I mean, I was grateful, but for wholly different reasons. But I was grateful.
Really?
Yeah. Argentinian guy, short story. A guy is really a monster in terms of embezzling money. Okay. And so I put myself in a position to help support him and the other individuals in this environment find out what's really going on. And I do that grateful that he's willing to let me in to see and support before we knew what was really going on. And because I was grateful, he couldn't push me out. He would have loved to have. If I treated him any other way, he could have easily diminished or pushed me away. So he now was kind of obligated, even if he didn't want to say, okay, come on in. Then he got scared because he knew if I came in that things were going to get probably clearer and he was going to be exposed. So then he turned on me and wrote the horrible emails. So at the point, it felt horrible to read his emails where he was vindictive and projecting on me and writing really horrible things. Nobody likes you. If you come, I leave. I won't be here when you arrive. Like, it was this really, really. So I wouldn't say it didn't feel sad. Totally. But then what happened was this. Now I'm asleep. And I'm allowing myself to feel, I feel so bad. And then I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning, my head, the trigger went off, the intuition. Oh, wow, this has nothing to do with me. And then I started to vibrate like, oh, wow, this is bad. And so I think at that point, I even called the individual who I was supporting, who was in Argentina. And I said, you have to leave. Like, that's how clear I understood what was going on without even knowing any details. And then he got on a plane. He literally fled the country at 6 in the morning, ran off to the airport and left, because in Argentina, you don't know what could happen to you. And it came out exactly because that kind of behavior only shows up when people are put on the spot, and especially when they're not forced on the spot, but when they're shown with love, because now they have to turn into be violent in order to push it away. So what I was grateful for was a few things. I was grateful for being me, first of all. Like I was grateful, like, wow, I never shifted to become the other guy who was defensive and angry and vindictive. Like I was really grateful that, wow, I'm going to show up as I am, even under attack. I was grateful that that allowed my intuition to stay. Like, because I was so connected to my own pain, even, my intuition could speak to me and say, wow, like there's something going on here that actually needs to happen that I'm not. So I was actually grateful for the intuition that was forming because of this. And weirdly, I was grateful for me. Like I told Ronnie afterwards, because Ronnie, she hates it when I'm under attack, and then I allow that to hurt me. Right? Ronnie would say, Andy, why do you let that? Why don't you just shut down emotionally? Why do you let other people bother you? And I'm like, yeah, if I don't allow the feelings to come in, then I don't even get to feel the joy and the happiness. I just shut down and become a vanilla neutral sort of.
No.
So yeah, in that instance, it was a lot of turmoil. It wasn't easy, so I don't want to say, oh, easy, but I was deeply grateful for how it all unfolded, and more because I lived and worked from principle than from trying to manage it and thinking that I knew the right answer or something. Yeah. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that is. Like,
What?
I was going to say, I'm kind of finding that I'm going to have to rewatch this show. There's like little jewels that you touched upon.
I'm always scared when you say that, because I think I probably spoke in too like convoluted or complicated ways or something.
No.
Too condensed.
No, I'm just trying not to let my mind grab everything now. So
nice. But going back to bad emails, because I get so many of them, and people who are listening, I can help you in a minute. So
he can.
I've written 4 in the last week, by the way. I'm the go-to. No, I don't want to. I want to say that on the air. I'm going to start getting tons of them now. But the whole thing is that there's the when we interact, we're often making it personal, because we go back to our experience. We want validation for our experience from the other person, so that we don't have to feel as bad. So they project onto us, and then we get defensive. And we say, oh, they are projecting onto us. They don't understand us. Now we have to defend and make our case. And in a way, once you're in that world, you just reinforce this whole pattern. It goes nowhere. They're probably going to do whatever they're going to do anyways, write a bad review or say whatever they're going to say. But at some point, a person's need to be heard and understood is their Achilles heel. So for me, there's gratitude that there was an intention to make this cooperation work, that it didn't go either way that we wanted, you nor I. And unfortunately, we find ourselves here, and it just doesn't make any sense. So I try to then make it so it financially is in a way that neither party is totally feeling that they were screwed. Right? That's the best scenario. In some scenarios, it's so bad that both parties want, say, 100% of whatever they think they're entitled to, and then that goes bad. Because if neither party recognizes that expectations weren't met, then obviously there's other things that at play. That needs a relationship coaching usually. Yeah. So start it with I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we tried, or I'm grateful that we had this opportunity, or thank you for all the time you spent. All that. Yeah.
What you're speaking to is a way of being, right? It's not like you're telling people now, okay, you can do your emails like this, because it really comes from the intention. And if you're not genuine, I think you're going to tune into that.
You're right. Yeah, it's always, when we talk about anything, I mean, especially nowadays, it's so hard to be in a society which doesn't take your intentions into account. Because what it says is we're going to judge you for your words, but not for the intention. And when someone doesn't look at your intention, at the end, what happens is you're not seen, and that therefore you'll be separate from them at that moment. And I see where we are as a society is that people are often not, or maybe even worse, they're making assumptions about the intention, and then they're trying to create that story, which isn't necessarily true, but they almost need that to keep their position as a victim. So if he is a bad person or she's a bad person, then I'm valid in feeling how I feel now. Instead of saying, wow, they're really working hard to, like I talked about this discount. Like, let's say if I was to write the email to those people, the gratitude I'd have is that, oh, I love that they're really so price conscious, that they're really trying to see what kind of deal they can get. I think that's great. So that's how I would start the email. I love that you're trying to figure out the best way to get a price. I'd love to give you a better price, but this is the price that I offer for the service. And that's a really authentic feeling. Like you said, is it a technique or is it a true experience? And it is a true experience, because I think it's great not to spend a lot of money. So why would I not celebrate it in somebody else?
How I experience you when you write.
Yeah.
Like, you're not really thinking. It just feels like the words are just flowing out of your hand. Like, I don't see you pausing. It's just like, sure. It's like almost like singing and done.
Yeah. That's why people say, can you write the letter for me?
That's why you wrote 2 books.
Yeah, that's what, when we went to, I'm always saying, I've got to be in the right state of mind, and then I can write. So I might spend weeks not being in that state of mind, and then I don't feel like writing, or I don't write well. But if I'm connected to, let's say, call it the source, and I would connect the source a lot with gratitude, just being grateful for being. Somehow that then just flows as a natural consequence.
When you say connected to source, I've also heard you say connect to your emotions, like to all of them, like not just one.
Yeah.
Like, how do you differentiate that?
Okay, so I think I saw something nice today, which was Don Oakley is a friend. He has a spiritual retreat center. He does community activities in Tennessee. You don't see I think it's a well-being community. If you haven't seen it, it's an incredible place to go in Tennessee. And he sent out it was a spiritual humility. He wrote a really nice piece about spiritual humility, and I invited him to come on, talk about it. And what he said in the piece, and why I'm noting it now, is he said, we don't get somewhere. We peel off parts of ourselves that aren't useful for us anymore. Parts of us that just don't serve us at this time in our lives. And then by peeling these pieces away, what we're left with is the detritus, let's say, of whoever we are at that moment. And I'm always saying for myself that the more and more I let go of all of these thoughts of myself, these feelings that take me away from being in this moment, either throwing me into a future idea, or taking me to a memory of the past. If I can't sit into this moment, then I'm not sitting with my source. I'm not sitting with my feeling of, well, I know where my center is. And I'd see that manifesting itself in like a conversation with somebody. If someone's talking and I'm halfway through already thinking, okay, I know what I want to say. I know what I want to say. I know what I want to say. Then I already know there's a memory of whatever I think is relevant for this person. And now I'm bringing it in and not necessarily listening to them. Not a problem, by the way. Actually, no problem. Better that I'm aware of it, because sometimes you know me well enough. I'll even say, I can listen to you for another 5 minutes, but I already know what I'm going to say. So do I have to listen, or can we just go there now? So it's, in some way, I'm owning my space.
Yeah.
So it's no better or worse. It's just, I already know there's 3 things that said, maybe the person said, I should, I need to, maybe they used all the language, which made it clear that for them, there's an idea of what it has to be. And that could be the problem, right? That could be easy to just kind of say, hey, this is something that is so clear that we can at least discuss it right immediately. But what I see is myself is, if I'm not in tune with that and I'm just reacting to what's going on around me, right, then I'm out of sync or out of touch with whatever that thing you wanted to call my deep intuition, my feelings, my source. We can use those. I'm sure everyone probably has a better distinguisher for those, but that's what I would say. I don't like to coach people if I'm not centered. Yeah. I was on a coaching call about a month ago, and I was on the call with somebody, and I just got an email that took me off my concentration. And then I like told them right up front. I said, listen, I just got an email. I'm not really feeling totally grounded. So I just brought that in, shared what the email was about. We went through the call. They were really happy. It was really good. And then at the end, I also acknowledged again that, it didn't feel like it was like I was so centered that it didn't come through me. It kind of came from me a bit.
Got you. So what you're saying, you bleed a little bit into the...
Yeah. And maybe it's so little that it's not a problem. For them, they know me well enough, and I'm transparent as well when I bring my own baggage, that they'll also see. But for me, it was enough for me to note it. Because if I have any noise, it's like, if I got noise in my own head, how can I really be present when another person's talking to me? Because I'm also fending off whatever the noise is.
Don't you get centered once you've shared it?
No.
So you need more time to process?
Not on that case. Some cases, most of the time, yeah. But if it's like something that still needs a response and I haven't responded yet, then yeah, I might need that time to say, okay, I don't even know how I'm going to engage this yet. Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's part of getting old. Seriously. I'm not looking to the future and thinking to myself, is my life going to be purposeful? I'm not in my 30s looking at all my friends and what they've done and comparing myself and saying, hey, maybe my life isn't as successful or as purposeful as what they are doing. So there is honestly some state where you get to a place where you're far less curious about who you are compared to everybody else. Yeah. And I don't want to discount that, because I do believe we brought on the one guest, and there is some insight that comes with age, and not necessarily always, but I don't think we can underestimate that. Elder's wisdom was the term we used, of course, for that show. And I think with elder's wisdom, there's also there's a lot more making peace with death as well, like we said. Living in the constant fear of, I don't want to die, as opposed to the gratitude that, oh, I'm still around.
Apparently.
Yeah. Like there's deep joy in that. There can be, at least. Deep gratitude, like when I went, in the second book, when I went to my mom's, where she was buried, for years, I had spent time trying to make peace with the fact she wasn't there. That was, my life was consumed by who am I now? And it was me, 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 me. And when I went back to the cemetery on the trip to the States, I stopped and I was sitting there and I saw the separation in my emotion, because I was thinking. And then I was on the phone with Joanne Lavazio, and we kind of edited this from the book because it was just too hard. It got harder to read. But when I was with Joanne, she started talking to me as if she was my mom, and sort of giving me this deep feeling of love and comfort. So I was feeling into those feelings that I hadn't had for a long time, especially in a place I had a very strong association with the funeral. And then I started to talk directly to my mom, and then I started to share my gratitude, and then the tears came then. Yeah. I think that the gratitude, when I told you I cried 3 times before we showed up for this one, I cried because I associate gratitude with a deep beauty for me. Yeah. It's like the gratitude for it. That's why I said it felt limiting to connect it to anything, just grateful. Yeah. It's an overwhelming feeling, actually.
So in a way, if you're not grateful for where you are, you can't actually make space for something else to also enter. That's what
I feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Things enter, but it's a different sort of, it's like emergent.
Yeah.
Right. What happens? What do you?
I feel resistance to sharing this because, okay, I'll just share it. I find it kind of vulnerable, but last week Thursday we had this conversation, right?
Yeah.
I actually got to the point financially where I went to the supermarket, couldn't buy food, full stop, and it was heartbreaking. And yeah. And then Andy wanted to lend me money, and even him offering the support, I just couldn't receive it. There was so much resistance, and I felt like a failure. And so in a way, I wasn't feeling grateful in that moment, but you still put the money on my account.
Yeah.
So I had to laugh at that.
Yeah. Ronnie told me, she said, this is the, she said you shouldn't have done that. I think she said to me, I had to just tell her to be quiet at some point, because she said, you shouldn't do that because
he didn't ask for it.
He didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
And I said to her, it's exactly that reason. It's counterintuitive, but it was exactly the reason why I did it. It was that to let you sit with a feeling of, okay, how do I receive now? Because what I know is, if you're going to be successful, right, whatever that means, successful, I don't care. Actually, success is a convoluted term, but let's say it's never about what I do. It's about what's available to me. Even what's available at this moment, let's say. And as I told you, you could send it back to me. You could give it to an orphanage. I didn't really care at the end. And that was the fun of it, was that it was actually almost a social experiment. And how was it for you then when you did get it, when you saw it even? How was the moment when you saw it in your account?
So that was a Friday morning. It felt heavy in my body. Like I just saw the tension that I've been holding for the last few months. And I think I lied on my, like I didn't do anything productive. It was the first time I lied on the couch and I was just in cold sweats.
Wow.
Like it gave me permission to surrender.
You probably had adrenaline in your body for months, not weeks, but months.
Yeah.
I mean, you were running hard and fast the whole time through COVID. I don't know, other people might have said, hey, this is a time off. You didn't take any time off. You had to like reinvent whatever you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, with an identity that says I have to prove myself.
That I'm not a failure.
Yeah.
That I'm not a mistake.
Yeah. So receiving money would, in that way, say, hey, I am a failure. Like that would have been was or is the message in your. Receiving. Think about all the people that I'll work with in venture capital that'll ask other people to put millions of dollars sometimes in their ideas. And they feel not all that dissimilar from you. And then they lose that money because most of the ideas don't work. Yeah, it's very hard for them to come to grips with the fact that they let down somebody else so that they'd use somebody else's money and then it didn't pan out. So yeah, you're a failure, Bambos.
I'm a failure.
Isn't it great?
No.
Oh, Jesus. Let's try it again.
Slow down. This is our humor, guys.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I was going to say Andy's abusive to Bambos. I'm sure they will.
You are.
Yeah. Magda is telling us when we went to meditation, she's been doing her own practices. And she sends us the name. It's called Vipassana. That she corrects us.
Yes.
So yeah, very much so. How are we able to allow the thoughts without attaching? And then at some point allow the thoughts just to dissipate and just hear the noise or allow the noise. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, for those of you who are watching on any of the channels other than A Wonderful Chaos, we won't see your comments. So please do write any text or comments on the Wonderful Chaos page. I've noticed in the last few sessions, people have been writing on other walls, and then we haven't actually got a chance to see them. So if you have...
I did a watch party, so I'm just checking quickly.
So please do that just so we can see if there's anyone who's written anything. That would be great. Okay. Bolalan, who's often writing on the other page, I've noticed. Our big fan, Bolalan from South Africa. I love you, Bolalan. Thank you for making every day a bit of a joy for me. He takes quotes, as you maybe have seen, from the Wounded Healer book, and he posts at least one quote a day, and then I get to see 10 or 15 people comment on each one of his posts. And he moderates it, which is cool because he not only posts, but sometimes people misinterpret the quote, or it helps them discover something. So he's using the quotes from the book as his tool. We're so deeply grateful for that.
I think that book has so many quotes. It's unbelievable. You should at some point, if you want to make a book of quotes, that would be cool.
Yeah, well, I'll ask Bolalan to assemble all the quotes he's put together for it. Oh, we lost our mic or headset. I'm going to quickly look at my phone because we have 5 minutes, and I would love to see if there's on my own page if there's something that came up, because that's also where I saw comments being posted the last few times that I haven't seen. And I don't see us here live now. So yeah, let's just assume that that there's nothing been said. Yeah. Yeah. What are you grateful for today?
One of the things was this show.
And what about the show?
Just the opportunity to meet people who otherwise I would not have.
Yeah.
You're like spending time with you. I'm also changing my perspective on the world, right? Like this feeling grateful for people, no matter what their background, walk of life, from which space they're sharing from, shut down, open.
Yeah.
Just to embrace all of it, and not just saying it as a concept, but really tuning into that. It's well, I did it even yesterday with the clients that I had to find peace with in myself.
Yeah.
So I saw how that little thing showed up in my day yesterday.
Yeah, because I mean, you and I, for those listening, we'll spend a lot of time sort of discussing how it is we'll be engaging and how we'll let conversations evolve. And we're even sort of more thinking about roles. So what would it look like? Because sometimes in the past when we've been on, Bombos has done a straight face thing where he stands here just like this, and I'll look over at you and you'll sort of just do the straight face thing. And I was like, okay, you are here, but are you really here? And the beauty of you is that you're really looking to connect to where the person is very embodied in what they're saying. So if they're speaking from more of the head, right? And let's not use this as a negative, because I often see it's often perceived as a negative, and then that actually creates another sense of like confusion. It's some people like to communicate far more intellectually, ideas and thoughts and sort of methods and modes, and other people are very much into their emotional states, and either one of those different people shows up in a very different way when we do the show. We actually don't even know who they'll be that day. Sometimes I imagine someone will be one way and they show up very differently, and vice versa.
Exactly.
So but the interesting thing is, and this is what you and I have obviously been discussing, is when someone isn't maybe as embodied in their emotion, they talk from a lot of the thoughts and the thinking and their, what they learned, sort of didactic. You'll have a harder time staying with it just because you're not feeling them in their words.
Or like you said yesterday, I really get bored.
You get bored. And what I thought was nice was that as we've evolved, and especially I don't want you to be bored, or if you are bored, how do you get to enjoy your fact that you're bored in a way that it doesn't necessarily because if we were on an interview,
so that I don't have to pretend. Like that is.
Yeah, but it would be hard because you can't really have a guest on and say, you know what, I'm just bored. Sorry, guys, I'm just bored. So in some ways we'll have to figure out like how you get to because this is what I've noticed, because I get bored as well if I'm talking to someone and I don't feel them and their words. Kirk Scott, who we had on, Kirk, we were talking. He sent me 2 or 3 really beautiful messages. I asked him the question, how did it feel when he saw the Coraline film trailer? And then he started to discuss his past history. And then it was like, hold on, no, how did you feel? Like, how did you feel? And then the fact that by the 3rd time I was like, no. And then I said, please go to because he talked about earlier, he has a cry space I said, speak from the cry space. And then you saw he was fully embodied, like fully to the point where it kicked me back on my ass because I was like, wow, I didn't expect for it to go that deep. But then again, when people embody their words, and you could see from that moment forward in the show, he was fully present with what was vibrating in his body.
Mm.
And I knew once that happens, you're fully present because you can feel empathetically their body and your body. Yeah. And I've been so heady my whole life. When someone's heady, I can be with them because I know that. Right? I wanted to be a professor at some point.
Can we find another word for heady? It really sounds...
Yeah. It would be the polarity. Rational, emotional.
Rational.
And I think there's been a real backlash against rational because it's so dominated. It's like it's given so much, especially in business, it's been so heavily weighted in the past. It's only more recently that people are saying, well, the emotional competence is as important, in some cases, if not more, than the rational competence.
I wouldn't say more.
I would actually say that.
Really?
Yeah, because look at me. I went into marketing. I didn't know the title, didn't know what it did, didn't know anything. Didn't study it, didn't do business. And the only reason I got the position outside of, I'm sure, privilege, because I don't want to pretend like that isn't also at play, but was that I actually could interact in a way that made people feel comfortable. And that was a social skill. That was emotional intelligence, not, they asked me to define what marketing was. I wouldn't have been able to give an answer to the question. So in a way, emotional navigating outside of having the just general prerequisites and the expectation of whatever they needed already existed. So for me to interact with them gave them trust and faith. So yeah, that's why I say it's, of course I wasn't bioengineering. I mean, that's if it was a requirement for me to be able to do really something, then that's a whole nother category. Agreed. So let's exclude that for a moment. Other than that, yeah. So that's it. We crossed our hour. Any closing feelings or thoughts on your end?
Not so much thoughts, feelings. I do feel a lot of like having arrived in my body.
Yeah. Today or over the last weeks, or when did you feel that?
Oh, just talking about gratitude is, and the way you experience it in your body, I was feeling it in my own body.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love that. I love being in contact with stuff like the people that are embodying it help me to embody it. Yeah.
Well, it would be different if I tried to understand you, right?
Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't want to understand you.
Just be present with the vibration of it. How does it feel to be in that vibration?
Magdalena Lammer, in gratitude for you both and your guests on the
Thank you, Magda.
Chaos.
It's always great to have you here with us. I don't have the list of our lineup for tomorrow, but tomorrow we're on at 5, I remember. Do you remember who we have tomorrow at 5? You have to look at our things. We've got 5 fun shows, right? That I do know because I did our video yesterday, and Bambos is going to quickly look and tell me who is our guest tomorrow.
A Wonderful Chaos.
Who do we have, Bam?
Tomorrow we have I Don't Have a Choice with Michael
McDonald.
Yeah.
I Don't Have a Choice. I've never met Michael McDonald. This is so fun. I've read his post. He's very much into this non-dual space that we often discuss. And he writes some great posts that I always feel like, oh, I could have said that. I could, it's more like, basically it feels like we share the same mind. So he wrote a post, I guess, 2 weeks ago, which was all about someone that he interacted with saying, I don't have a choice. And he did this long explanation of once someone says they don't have a choice, obviously they don't have a choice because they've already stated that as a fact. But he said basically how that life looks. And I said, let's have him on the hour to discuss.
So what this means, guys, there's going to be 2 Andys here.
Yes.
And they'll be laughing at each other. Or with
Possibly.
each other. Yeah.
We'll have to see. I don't know enough about him. Who knows? Maybe he writes well, but he's full of animosity and hatred. Love you all. Yeah.
Have a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Guys.
We look forward to seeing you tomorrow on A Wonderful Chaos. Bye-bye.